Welcome everyone to the May 21st Utilities Committee meeting. We're going to get started with, well, Mark, what are we going to get started with first?
We're going to get started with Norman Lee Olson, who owns a building next to his other building on Bethel Avenue, 2465 Bethel, and he requested to discuss his sewer, or I guess utility charges, mainly sewer, correct?
Sewer.
And so I received an email from Norm on May 8th requesting to be on an upcoming agenda item concerning 2465 Bethel, which is that two-story building to the south of Olson Associates. And so I guess with that, you were talking about your sewer storm bi-monthly fee is now $1,200
$1,154
bi-monthly
bi-monthly.
for water, sewer, and storm?
Just
Just
sewer.
the sewer storm, not water.
I get water from West Sound.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so you have a copy of that email in your packet. I see that Norm has a 17-page summary of his bills.
No,
that
that's
he's
not the summary. Okay, so again, is it my turn?
Yeah, so he's, go ahead, and then there's a sheet in here that Rebecca broke down how it's being billed. So, finance.
Okay, so really I have two separate issues I want to discuss with you guys.
Okay.
The first issue is how the bill is, this our typical bill is being assessed. And then the second issue is about the fact that for the last few years we've been overbilled. So that's issue two. So I want to talk about issue one first.
Okay. Overbilling isn't really a utility committee.
Right. Well, except that it was, when I say overbilling, I have proof that and that's issue two, but in 2015, I asked for an assessment because I said the number of fixtures in my building was being overassessed. And John Robinson, said John Robinson would go in there and confirm it. Well, he did, and sent an email to, I guess we'll look at issue two first. Sent an email to Corey.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was on January 22nd, 2015. And they confirmed at that time that Suite 201 didn't have any fixtures. But I continued to get billed, and as of the last bill, I still get billed as 201 has a fixture. And for 30 months, and that was going on for months before this. But if you just go from that date right there to today, and then you average with the rates as they've increased, I've got overbilled about $3,000 in that period of time. So that's why I want.
Okay. So have you talked to utility billing finance yet?
No, well, because of this other issue I wanted to bring with you guys, this is more of a, I figured I'd bring this up. I didn't know if it was something that you guys could.
Yeah, to me there's two separate issues. One is how you get billed.
Right.
And that's obviously a conversation that utility committee would look at, because it's basically how our code is set up.
Right.
The second issue is if there's an actual error in the billing, then to me that's just meeting with Noah, the finance director, and Rebecca, and saying, look, I've got proof that I've been misbilled, and I don't know what their policies or procedures are on credits. I know they wouldn't do a reimbursement, they may do a credit, but
And that would be fine.
Okay, yeah, that credit would be fine, yes.
but again, that would be, that's not like a legislative
Okay,
thing. That's like,
And
you
I would
just,
think that would they'll take care of that pretty quickly.
okay.
right, they'll make it just, yeah, if you've got, well, I can't speak for finance department, but I would say you need to get with Noah
Right.
and say, hey, this should have stopped on a certain date, so.
Well, I'm
okay,
glad I called it issue number two, then we can disregard it.
Well, I think you probably could go right downstairs even.
Yeah, I will.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
issue number two, I'm just gonna say it's, because I'll reflect this in the minutes. So
Okay.
say billing error, and then the direction is to meet with Corey, Noah, and Rebecca. Is what I would suggest. Okay. Issue number 1. And again, I wish Rebecca was here. I'd met with her briefly on Thursday.
Is she downstairs? Should we try to get her?
Well, let's look at her email of the 16th where she, and you may or may not have seen this, she breaks down.
Right.
So I think what we need to then figure out is this accurate?
No,
Okay.
I only have 4 businesses with sewers
Okay.
and not 5.
Okay.
So the difference is about $100, a month or a little, yeah, that's the main thing.
Okay, so again, that falls under the accountability, that error issue. What I can say, and I'll go back to when Norm, did you work with Don Ryan? 'Cause remember
No,
when
but I heard about that. See,
Yeah.
because when this came up, I was told that Don Ryan was going through some kind of similar thing, but that was more like the method of billing. And
Right.
and at that time they they said it was going to be they said the kind of the process maybe I might go through, and it was proving other facilities. And I kind of approached it in a different way. So I hope when you guys look at this, the way we go through this, that you see that maybe, because in the end, at the last page here, Mark, it says, this is down in your sewer code, in the event that an established rate class does not accurately reflect the impact on the sewer system, the city engineer may determine a specific monthly rate.
Wow.
Son of a gun. Did anybody know this?
So that's why when I go through this, I'm hoping that I prove,
Okay, so what I can say, so let me, as a preamble then, what I'll say is, the reason I brought up the market was, because the market was a one-off oddity that we were trying to make work with the code. And because it had so many different elements, it had a public restroom, but then it had certain fixtures that were associated with certain tenant spaces. And so, and again, at the end of the day, we have to follow our code. And so I know that the market was a challenge to some degree because they were taking all these different elements and they were looking at it like an Albertsons, that has, you got the store that has common bathrooms for everybody, but then you have the produce department and the meat department and the dairy. And so that's ultimately what the decision they made on the market, because it was different. Now, what Rebecca did say on, or I'll say finance, is that how this particular 2-story professional office building is being billed per the code is consistent with every other building in the city.
Right. The exception, I think if you look up and down, say if you take another 2-story building on Bethel, I think, I don't know how many square feet, like the real estate agency just
Windermere?
Huh?
Windermere?
Windermere, say. If they're the same square footage or whatever. But if you go through, if they have 2 stories and they have, they have bathrooms on both stories, they might have the same number of people I have in this building, but because I have 6 tenants, I get destroyed. Where they have the same number of people, the same number of bathrooms, and they're going to be just a small fraction of me. It doesn't make any sense. But let me go through the whole thing.
Okay, what I just wanted to let the utility committee know is every other building that has tenant spaces like yours,
Right.
that have their own kitchen and bathrooms or
There's
whatever.
no kitchen. There's not one kitchen in this building. All there is these little tiny sinks where people pour out their coffee cups.
Okay, well, again,
And that's billed as an ERU, like a house. That's billed as a house with a family of 4.
right, well, we've had this, so we've had the conversation where it talks about, our rates are based on fixtures. And
Right.
there was a moment in time when we were looking at getting away from fixture count and going to seasonal wet weather average for sewer.
Yeah,
So-
winter water usage.
winter water usage, so then you get rid of the irrigation systems.
Right.
And we're gonna base on flow, and we looked at that probably 8 years ago. And so I don't know if
Well, that's the analysis I
if that's
showed
what
you
you're,
real quick.
if that's the direction you're wanting to see.
No, that's what the direction is, the last page where you can, if I show you, if I prove to you that I'm being overbilled by a factor of 6, and let me scope back up for a second. So in our building, we have Fidelity, we have the Port Orchard Independent, we have another financial company and a
Insurance.
insurance and some kind of shrink. But I don't.
Is Mary and Martha, are they one of your tenants?
No, they.
That's another building.
That's the
Yeah.
building next.
Okay.
Right, and
Okay.
so our building, we have an elevator. We have the bathrooms are in the hallways. They're not in the suites. Well, the nice bathrooms, and the hallways are wide. We got a conference. It's a really nice office building. But when you're trying to attract tenants, they care about the rate that you charge for rent, but also your expenses. So it's called triple net, and the expense rate is you got a rate you charge for the rent, and the expenses is supposed to be divvied up to all the tenants.
Right.
Well, our expenses are so expensive that I've had to cap them because I won't get tenants if I say I'm going to charge really what the expenses are. And if you look up and down, I mean, an expense rate of about $5 a square foot a year is probably an average. It used to be $4. It's probably about $5 now. The sewer, just the sewer, is $1 a square foot. I mean, it is so outrageous.
But it's not being billed at $1.
$1
It just works out.
of my expenses that I've had to cap at $7. If they're really $8, it's because of sewer is 6 times more than anybody else. So it's if you want people to come in and build office buildings instead of storage on Bethel, we got to look at expenses and stuff like that. There's nowhere else. If you go to Silverdale, I mean, there's nowhere else where it's charged this way by fixtures. So, but let me just go through real quick.
Okay.
So the first page, if we open up issue number 1 package.
And before you start forward, so let's just focus specifically on sewer, because water isn't an issue.
No. Storm, I'm not worried about storm.
Storm is-
If we just look here on the first page.
Storm is impervious surface.
Right, it is what it is. The
So-
same
so-
as the office. The office next door, our engineering office,
Right.
is reasonable, but it's charged as we got one. We got a lot of people in there, but we're one business, and we're one floor. I mean, so it adds up to a reasonable amount, but it's a factor of 6. That's smaller than this. So we're just getting killed.
So the issue is your tenant space, because it's separate tenant.
Yeah, you get billed
businesses.
$111 per business. When
111 or 137?
137.
Okay.
It used to be 100.
Okay.
Well, anyway, so the first page. So this is our combined sewer and storm is almost $1,200, and that, like I said, is $1 a square foot. So, and then the next page shows that we got 5 businesses getting with a fixture. No, 4. It's being charged as 5, and 1 is even a business that doesn't have a fixture is charged extra, and then the number of floors we have with bathrooms, we get charged another ERU. So if you look at right above this one right here. So a dwelling unit, one dwelling unit is 137. So that's an ERU. Really an ERU? You guys are billing at $137, but I'm getting billed. I've got like 8 ERUs for some reason. When you add them all up, for almost $1,000. So this next one, this page, it does compare, the office, the 2453, and this building. And like I said, our office building, we have almost about the same number of employees. And the sewer, you see, is $164 per 2 months, and then we got on the sewer for the big building is almost $1,000 per 2 months. but we got the same storm rate. So now this is the important one right here. And I know we're not getting billed, we're getting billed by fixtures, but not, so that right there is our water usage rate from West Sound Utility. And I didn't include the last month that in 2018 because it appears we have a water leak and that we just found out. So, but we're investigating right now. But if you look here, I mean, and I'm including the summer months, like you said, Mark, and it averages out at 227 gallons per day, including the irrigation months. That's 1 ERU. And if you were to go next to the, well, the next page, when we design a sewer lift station, we use 225 as an ERU.
Right.
You know, so I know you know. So then the next one is if we were in West Sound Utility District being charged sewer instead of you guys, and we're so close as far as our address. If you look at the bottom, we got 900 our average is 900 cubic feet per month, and that's including irrigation months. And if you do that little equation they have, we'd be at $111 a month. So if you take our $1,000 we're charged now and divide it 2, we're getting charged almost $400 a month more than if we were in West Sound's district.
So West Sound charges their sewer based on
Water usage.
water usage?
Everybody else
They
does.
can measure consumption?
Well, they do it on
On their meat?
No, what they do is they look at your water usage in the winter, so your non-irrigation months,
They figure everything you take in is
and
going
they
out.
calculate based off of a factor, 80% indoors, 10%,
Okay.
or 10% indoors, 80% outside.
Okay.
So if they did it based on what you're saying and just used winter months, we wouldn't even be at 111 because that includes the summer months where we're irrigating. So then the same one. Then I just added this because of this is your whole code there in the sewer for the fees, and just so you can just at the bottom where it gives you the ability to help me out, man.
Okay.
It's killing me is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so this isn't gonna be a resolved today issue.
That's good food for thought.
Yeah, I'm trying to, right now, I don't make any money. I mean, that building, it's the expenses because like I said, I got the elevator, we got the good amenities and stuff. If I try to sell that, it's based on, how much somebody can make, how much money somebody can make, an investor. And because of my expenses are so damn high, my appraisal on the building is, I'm assessed it like it's worth something like $1.8 million. Well, shit, if I tried to sell it, I probably couldn't sell it for $1.1 million because of the expenses and all this shit. Excuse my language.
That's appropriate.
So, so what I would suggest as a follow-up action, I think it's probably just best, because I think formally we needed to come to this platform. I think what we should do is I'll send out a meeting notice where myself, Thomas, Noah, and Rebecca will meet with Norm, and we'll just look at the 2 issues separately, but look at the larger picture. I guess what I can say again is finance said, this is how other buildings are being built. So right, wrong, or different, that's how we're doing it. You've got a building that has different tenant spaces and fixture counts. So I'm just putting that out there that we have CIPs and CFCs that are all based on our code, and so this isn't, the ramifications are pretty large.
But are they? Because if nobody else, because in another, right now, if I was one of these solutions that I came up with 3 years ago when I brought this up, and I should have stayed on it because since then I don't know how much money I've burned, But one of the things was, we'll go through and take out the fixtures out of the suites. You know, they're pouring out their coffee in these little sinks. So you want me to, one of the amenities to try to attack some tenants is they have a little sink. So I'm going to take those out so I can fix my sewer bill issue.
Yeah, I'm just saying that,
Well, I guess what I was going to say, Mark, is what you're saying is, I understand that, but there's so many different the way this one building, the way you do office buildings is, I think, because if you look at everybody else, all the other uses, it's more reasonable. This office building one is the one that's screwed up, and there's office, like you said, there's office buildings all through the city that are built the same way, but if they don't have fixtures, if they don't have a bathroom on both floors, and if they don't have a bunch of tenants, they're probably not getting destroyed like I am. So they're not coming to you with an issue. And if I come to you, you can leave it all like it is, but I have proof, and it says I have proof that the established rate class does not accurately reflect the impact on the sewer system. I'm proving that I'm only putting 1 ERU, and you're charging me for 5. So I'm proving that I'm not impacting the sewer system.
right, and so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree. What I'm saying at this point is, we need to get together utility billing finance with NOAA, and we'll have
And it has ramifications, because I hear what you're saying, and I sympathize. And I don't know which side I was on this, but it's an imperfect system, is what I can say.
well, we know that our code has issues, but we also.
In gyms like that.
But
we have a single person living next to a family of 5 type issue, which is not commercial, but so there are ramifications.
Well, and this is unique in that he's getting his water from another source, and so that's not measurable in the same way that we've been doing some of the other. This is, but a meeting with NOAA and utilities, I think.
Who's no?
He's a new finance director.
He's a new ally.
treasurer.
Oh, okay.
So that's really what needs to happen is, we need to meet at a staff level.
And for
then-
sure, especially because there's a fixture count off on this one.
Right,
That's
so
gonna be
we'll
probably
address both
reversed.
issues.
Okay.
So,
So unfortunately, you're gonna have to
I know.
come to another meeting, but it'll be a staff level meeting.
Okay.
There'll be experts there.
But I-
And then get that changed for future billing.
Right, and like I said, I wanted to have it here first.
Yes.
Because then we'll come back, because again, this has ramifications
Right.
to the system.
It
So
does.
we've met now, the utility committee, I'm assuming, supports taking this
Really, we
meeting at
do.
a staff level, and then we'll come back and report at a future utility committee meeting, or even a work study at this point, depending
Might
on.
be a work study.
And it is similar in that, mentioning Don Ryan in the market, that had to be reviewed and reconsidered.
Well, and at that point, we opened up the conversation about going to a
Sure.
different methodology.
I know.
And the council did not choose to go down that slippery
Chief
slope.
council doesn't like exceptions.
I know, so I think it can, sorry about another meeting, but I think it'll go places.
Oh, that's fine, just as long as we don't have to wait
Moving.
a month or something before that meeting, you think?
I'm
I
not
know
trying
it's
to-
summertime, so people are going on vacation.
I'll send out a meeting request for maybe next week, something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, you know what, if I were you then, I would take out fixtures.
I would not take out the fixtures.
I
I
would.
think that's ridiculous.
I think it is
really do.
ridiculous,
I-
but that's
I
how
just-
ridiculous this actually is.
I would.
I take a
You
picture.
would?
Sure. Fixtures.
I think it's great if units have a sink, though.
I know,
I
but
think every
do-
bedroom should have a sink in
Yeah,
it, too.
but Fred, are you hearing
Yeah.
what you have to pay for that thing?
Well, I think, I would not change the building, but.
Right, but I'm gonna have to, if you guys don't change it, I can't be billed $1,000 or $500 a month for sewer.
See, what you do is you give the new tenant a choice. You say, see the sink? Do you know how much that costs?
Right.
You can have it. But guess what?
I'm gonna start charging
I
for
can
them to
just
use the elevator.
conveniently take it out, and you will be having this rent for this amount. Your choice. But I agree.
Yeah.
It's
That's like taking out a toilet.
no, it's not like taking out the
Almost.
toilet, Fred. It's
Oh,
a
then now they can go dump out their coffee in the
Out the window.
bathroom.
Fred, your suggestions this morning. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Nora, for
all right,
coming
And
in.
I'll have, put your documents in the file. But you'll want to bring back.
I'll bring
a
them
couple
back so we can do
copies, when you do meet. So, okay,
All right, thanks, guys.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
See ya.
Nice seeing you, Thomas.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay.
Foster pilot participation update. And I guess you have in your packet, you've got this letter to Ecology. And then you have a memorandum that Thomas prepared to send to the AWC, the Government Relations Advocates. That was in response to the letter. And that's it. So, Thomas?
Yeah, so you'll have to excuse my allergies here. But this is just basically a proposal, something that we've been working on, kind of different resource managers throughout the area. Ecology is looking for guidance as to how to define things like what we call NEB, net ecological benefit, what this foster pilot program looks like. AWC has prepared this letter. It's really, really rough. It's more just kind of they threw a bunch of items on a piece of paper and we're looking at it. The letter that goes out will look very different than this. However, I did prepare this memo as a proposal that we will be shopping around, talking to the tribes about, talking to the tribes about it, talking with Ecology as a potential option for mitigation. And I think ultimately I'm hopeful that it could go somewhere. We have to have our conceptual mitigation response back to Ecology so they can submit to the legislature by November 15th. So this is really just starting that conversation.
And I guess on a larger, more of a 10,000 footish, does everybody understand really kind of remember from the previous meetings, really what this whole thing is about, what the pilot, it's going back and trying to unwind some old historical methods for getting water rights.
Yep.
How things were done in the past through Ecology, through the tribes, dumping water into streams that had different temperature, different pH, or not allowing a well to be even drilled
Right.
in a certain region without any science behind it. It was all just very arbitrary. Well 10 is our perfect example that, we have a well that's drilled down into a 1,000-foot aquifer, but it had to be drilled away from the influence of Blackjack Creek because there were wrong assumptions made that a well at 1,000 feet where we're putting well 13 would have any impact at all on Blackjack Creek, and it doesn't. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just trying to paraphrase, is that you had certain thoughts and beliefs that truly weren't true. And you had the geological study that finally was completed, the 5-year study that was performed by USGS, that actually kind of opened up this whole body of information on how our aquifers are really working. And I think that was a key piece to rethinking the dumping out of water as mitigation, so that you could get a water right procured.
Yeah, and there's still people that believe that what we call in-kind mitigation, dumping that water is the right thing to do. But I think what's important is for the first time, the legislature is saying, okay, we have over a century of bad water law. It's just been band-aided, and it's, you know, sometimes to fix something, you got to tear it down. They've been trying to band-aid and band-aid and band-aid, and we've had Postema and Hearst and Foster and all these different court decisions where you have lawyers and judges ruling on the interpretation of water law, but it's really inconsistent with what's actually happening from a biological standpoint, from an ecological standpoint. And so the legislature has basically said, tell us how we should be doing this, because we don't know, we don't understand it, you know, and no one person does. It's water law. It's like the biggest book in RCW. But this is a small piece where, you know, hats off to the legislature for giving us a chance to try and come to a consensus and then recommend how to move forward.
When you say dumping water, what do you mean?
Like literally dumping water.
Like
Into the
stormwater or
So the
sewage or
idea,
what?
the idea is that when you pull water from a hydrogeologic standpoint, when you pull water out of the ground, in concept, and this was Postema, they ruled that if one single molecule would have been in a creek that you've now pulled out of the ground, you have to replace it.
That's the in-kind.
The problem is when you pull water out of the ground, you go through a treatment process, you chlorinate it, it's stored at a very different temperature, and you put that water back in a creek, it's the wrong temperature, it's the wrong pH, and ultimately, we're not allowed to use the term de minimis anymore. That was called out in Hearst, but it is pretty de minimis. When you think about a creek and that huge body of water, and I dump a gallon of water into it, it doesn't make a difference. Now, what I talk about in the memo is we're going to be required to do some sort of mitigation, right? Which is understandable, and from a hydrogeologic perspective, it's the right thing to do to protect the watershed, making sure that we're keeping water in our watersheds to recharge our aquifers and provide habitat for salmon. But what I'm proposing in here is that we already have a stormwater permit. We already have environmental projects we have to do, replace culverts and do all this other stuff. We can quantify how much money it costs us to mitigate down to the gallon. We know what that cost is to the water department, basically. So we're gonna take that amount in this scenario, that amount of water, quantify it into a number, and then take that money and say, we're gonna go do something that actually has an ecological benefit. We're gonna go, you know, do
Reestablish a
in-stream,
wetland.
yeah, you know, stuff that actually, that a salmon would care about. A salmon doesn't care about, you know,
An extra
putting
gallon.
a gallon in, right? But they do care about bank restoration and shading and removing passages where they can't get through, which is something we're already required to do in a lot of instances because of our stormwater permit. So what we're talking about here is creating legislation that is going to allow us to spend money in a way that actually means something. Because right now,
And that's what the net ecological benefit is.
right now, with current law, and not everybody agrees with this, but we're literally just dropping dollars into a creek, and it's not doing anything. And when I say we, I mean the state.
So to answer your question, Fred, so we're drawing water out of our wells, going through our system, and we literally have a bypass line with a meter on it,
Yep.
where we're just flowing water into the stream.
And one of the things that's really remarkable about the USGS study is it shows you a time-lapse capture of where the water comes from. So if we drill a well, if we drilled straight through Blackjack Creek and went 1,000 feet down and we were pumping water, that water hits Gold Mountain and it takes about 800 years to travel underground to the point where we would withdraw it. So the very theory that there's any water in Blackjack that we're impacting, from a hydrogeological standpoint, it's just not correct. And I think that it's really important to understand that 10 years ago, we didn't have the science. We didn't know. Now that we have this great tool, the legislature is saying, hey, use it. Figure out where the water's coming from, and let's come up with a plan.
And let's stop making silly assumptions.
And like I said,
and silly mitigations that are just costing taxpayers, ratepayers money.
Yeah.
And again, you're not getting any benefit from it.
And like I said,
It's like the old days when you had a cavity and they'd pull your tooth out because you went to the dentist and they put you a pair of pliers and well, that's what we're going to do. It's like, well, why? Aren't there other things we can do that are better?
10 years ago, if you would have if you would have asked me if we would have this chance, pollen, it's a terrible thing.
But it's science.
I would have said no. We wouldn't. Water law is very complicated and difficult, arduous. But like I said, hats off the legislature. They gave us a golden opportunity to work together with tribes and NGOs and figure out how we can actually manage this watershed.
So, you know, I'm trying to, this is kind of new information in a way. So Kingston now is going to be trying to put its wastewater back through the ground. Okay, right?
That's what Belfers do.
They have a water reclamation facility that was, they've been designing it for 15 years with Goldsmith. And the idea is that they could use that water at the golf course and they could do recharge. A driver for reclaimed water 15 years ago was, we thought, you know, in California, it's very necessary.
Right.
California,
Here,
Colorado,
Yeah, anywhere where
Arizona.
there's a shortage.
what we
period.
see here is we only use 6% of the annual recharge.
Mhm.
We just don't use that much water. And we're unique. Kitsap is very unique.
And the cost of that is so high. Well, we saw
Very
that.
high.
Well, we saw it.
That purple pipe, you know, didn't make any sense at all.
Well, and what's happening is you're seeing this paradigm shift. Like we always talk about paradigms, right? It's like before it was, you know, hey, we're going to recharge the aquifers. We got this great idea. Well, we don't really need to do that as much. However, your TMDLs are pushing reclaimed water. Not because we want to reclaim the water, so it's probably a bad moniker, but it's cleaning up the inlet. It's taking that effluent and treating it at a biological level that's good. I mean, if you take a treatment plant, a sewer treatment plant, and you use reclaimed water to mitigate for your TMDL impact, you just double the capacity of your plant, right? So it's funny because, you know, it's reclaimed water and it's great, and it is, it's great technology, and in some places it's desperately needed. Australia's been doing it forever. Well, I think we're going to see reclaimed water for a very different reason,
Right. Not for the reason originally anticipated.
right?
And reclaimed water, and Port Orchard, and West Sound, we're just as guilty as anybody. It was a bandwagon. It was like, hey, we're gonna, you know, when I went to Arizona right out of high school in 1979 to go down to architectural school down there, I was introduced to the Salt River Project. So this is like 1980. The Salt River Project had been in play for I don't know how many years at the time. And it was tertiary treatment. They were already using, you know, you have primary, secondary, in our plant right now is secondary, and they were already developing at that time a potable sewer, you know, that would be used for irrigation, and they were putting it in buildings long before it became a buzzword up here. Because they had to, because you're in the desert, or you're you know, Colorado, all these states were getting water from the Colorado River, and now that you've got all the fracking and you've got all these contaminated, you know, aquifers where they've got natural gas coming out, it's a problem in that zone. It wasn't a problem up here, so it was never economically viable. We got a grant, we pursued it through, you know, jointly with West Sound. We developed the, you know, the Class A biosolids and put in that membrane bioreactor so that we could actually create this, you know, tertiary water, and it wasn't beneficial to anybody. And so we shut the system down. Now, 100 years from now, we may fire that thing back up because we're going to need to, because there'll be so many people moving, and you know, I'll be dead and gone, but my guess is at some juncture, 500 years from now, you may not have anybody even living in the central band of the United States. It may actually just turn into a desert because of the this is my Nostradamus moment, I think that fracking is going to create the entire central south part of the United States uninhabitable. And then you're going to have all your population that's going to be forced to move into Canada, Northern America. You know, so if I can come back in 3,000 years, it'll be like a what's that, Idiocracy, where they're trying to grow vegetables with Gatorade. But no,
What a nice picture.
well, I just think it's realistic because
Uh-huh.
you're going to contaminate, that fracking is going to contaminate all those aquifers, and people aren't, and then you're not going to have potable water, and it's just going to turn into it already almost did once due to over agriculture. That's what the Dust Bowl is all about.
Yeah.
It wasn't just because it was dry, it's because the farming practices were bad. They were opening up land that should have never been opened up, and that's why they've been spending millions of dollars since then trying to reestablish prairie grass and all those things. The Dust Bowl didn't need to happen at all. And I think just from the similar thing, we're going to look back 500 years from now and say, okay, fracking was a political decision to get us out of the Middle East. It doesn't make any sense for the environment. The long-term impacts of fracking will, you know, generations from now, they'll figure out that that was a really stupid thing to do, just like they did with the Dust Bowl. It's like, why plow up these ecosystems of these prairies that they've now spent millions of dollars to reestablish because they realized that they should have never torn up that grass because the soils just couldn't manage it.
And the cost to try and treat water after you've done fracking over an aquifer it's astronomical, and the cheapest option might be to do like a desal, to actually heat it up, evaporate it, drop it back down into a tank. I mean, it's
Right, but then when you go through that process, then you get into the issues that the reason that desalinization isn't working in these communities, that they say, hey, great, we'll just take the salt water out. They're creating such stockpiles of salt per gallon that you can't even do anything with it.
and your loss is incredible. How much water you lose when you do that.
And then you got to figure out what to do with the salt. And so you put it back in the salt water. And now your pH and alkalinity and everything on the natural water starts killing off the environment because now it's like super salt.
How much fracking is still going on?
It's tremendous.
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's like the main. If you go down, when I was a kid, and we used to go down south because my parents came from Oklahoma, so we'd always take these road trips, and we get into Texas, Oklahoma, and all you would see were I'm like, what are those things? Those oil
Yeah.
pumps that are just
Yeah.
there's like millions of them, right? You're just
Yeah.
driving down the highway. You don't really see those that much anymore. You're just seeing, these, natural gas systems there. And the reason we're there, from a political standpoint, is to get out of the Middle East. We're trying to become non-dependent on Middle East oil by getting every bit of oil or energy out of the ground, and at the cost of contaminating aquifers. So there will be a day when it's going to be like Waterworld.
My prediction, based on your prediction, is a lot of future class action lawsuits.
At some point.
State against Exxon or whatever.
Well,
Yeah, I
and
don't
what
know.
happens when there's no Exxon?
But the problem is you've got the EPA that actually, they wrote, again, because of the political pressure to get out of the Middle East, the EPA, in my opinion, buckled. And I'm not a super environmentalist, I'm a civil engineer. I'm pretty what's
Balance.
reasonable.
Balance.
I've never been, not cut a tree, or I've never been, let's pave everything. I've always been fairly, let's mitigate and figure out a way to move forward. But when I saw what the EPA allowed to put into code to allow fracking, I just said, this will come back generations from now, and they're going to look at this and go, this was a buy-off. This was energy companies that completely bought lobbyists.
Is there any way that, what, is there an effort against it to shut it down
Oh,
anymore?
there's all kinds of efforts to shut it
Little
down.
ones.
But the problem is, once the EPA put it into
Uh-huh.
law,
Uh-huh.
it's a loophole. It's like
Yeah.
it'll be, 10 years from now, somebody's gonna look back at that and say, that's the biggest loophole ever, and it created the demise of the United States.
The problem is right now it is an industry of billions and
It's
billions
so
and
lucrative,
billions of
there's
dollars.
just no.
It's
So
driving.
even if you it's rigged and it's gamed in a way that if you tried to shut it down, how many millions of jobs would you be cutting?
Right. It's where you had 10 years ago, you had towns that were literally on the brink of just going away, and now they're booming.
Dakota's even.
Yeah. So anyway, I've got off on a whole political thing, on this. but it's
It's a
applicable.
doomsday deal.
Well, it's political. It's applicable to the utility committee from the standpoint of we're looking at our water resources today, because quite honestly, the Olympic Peninsula, Kitsap Peninsula, state of Washington, at some point in the future is going to be providing water outside of our area in a very robust way. There's no way that that's not going to happen someday. I mean, you're already looking at it with all of California is fed with what the Colorado River and parts of Colorado and Utah and stuff. So inevitably, how we manage our water rights today is going to have an impact on will we have the water to provide the need. And water is the one, water will be gold someday. People will be having wars over water. And that's not a doomsday, whatever, it's just reality. They talk about what are primary foods versus secondary foods. And so primary foods aren't lean meats and vegetables, those are secondary foods. Primary foods are water, air, relationships. There's 5.
Oh, I keep thinking of all the Mad Max movies, thank you.
Well, that's the reality. And so, quick little story. So, my wife was telling me about the 5 primary foods, right? And I'm like, that's just whatever. And at that moment, I had taken a piece of steak and I popped it in my mouth, and it went down, and it wouldn't go any further, and wouldn't come up, and I was choking at the sink. And my son had to come over and give me the Heimlich mover. Second time in my life this has happened. And we were just talking about primary versus, she's giving me this, it's relationships and it's air and it's water, and I'm like, yeah. It's this whole yogic kind of whole living conversation. And I'm choking, and Harry comes over, and finally I'm like, no, don't pat me on the back, because I'm like, and he gets the meat comes out. And my wife takes that moment to go, so, what do you think is a primary food now? Was it air? And I was like, yes. Is it water when you're dying of thirst afterwards? You can live 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and 3 minutes without air.
3 days.
3 days without water and 3 weeks without food, right? That's the backpacking kind of go by. And so she took that moment to teach me a life lesson that, air is pretty important, and then water is very important. So that's what so if anybody's listening to this tape and is offended, this is really just more educational at this point, is that we have to really think about our water resources and how we manage it, because we're not managing it just for the Kitsap Peninsula or the city of Port Orchard. We're really managing this for a much larger user someday in the future. I'll get off my soapbox and apologize to anybody that's offended. Okay, well 9. Quick update on that is on the water quality retrofit. What you have in your package is this is just the layout of what we're starting construction really now. Contract's been issued to JMG. They were the ones that built our DeKalb facility. And so you can see the new building that's being built right here. This is our new treatment building. This was the building that we built not too long ago, which we thought was our treatment facility. And then we've got our pump house. What's not in the picture is across the field where we're relocating the existing bathrooms over by the tennis courts. So, one benefit of having this treatment system that needed a sewer system was running that sewer out and then being able to take care of that really old, worn out restroom and being able to get a brand new restroom like we have it before.
And putting it next to the tennis court
Where it's gonna be used.
and the parking lot, so that somebody drive around with young kids can just
Safer too.
pop
It was
in
kind
there.
of tucked
Visible,
away.
yeah.
I didn't like that location.
No, it was tucked into the trees.
Yeah,
and-
you know what? We already have a problem with some of that back there. So.
Right, so that's the retrofit. The other piece is Arizona Missions demand letter. There is not a copy of the demand letter in this particular file. Once the letter is issued in this public record, then we'll have a copy of it. But at this point, I can just say that the demand letter is close to being complete and issued to the engineer of record.
Good. And will we be able to recoup quite a bit, do you think? Remains to be
That's
seen.
a to be continued.
Yes.
We will establish what we think is a fair and equitable cost impact to the city. Obviously, we're not looking to have them pay for, we're not looking to get a free treatment system. Because we had alternatives to look at back in the day. The system proposed, this particular system, even a higher level system. So we had 3 options. The city chose option A. We're not trying to get option B for free.
Right.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to recoup costs of redesign and operational costs that were associated with us choosing an option that wasn't viable. So,
Cleanup week.
cleanup.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
So really, we're hoping, and again, this will really come down to a insurance coverage conversation with the engineer of record. McCormick Pump Station 1, and what you have in your packet here is just a very schematic drawing provided by Romtech, which ultimately is what the interim solution.
Oh,
No, this is the full.
Or that's the full. The interim is in place. This is the ultimate full fix. So I guess, Thomas, if you want to go through the kind of the main pieces and then relative to what's there.
Yeah, we have a submersible style system right now, and it's kind of tough to conceptualize. That's why we included this drawing
But where is the existing relative to this drawing?
right next to it. So this is being installed directly upstream. They are going to temporarily bypass, the existing system so that they can get this in. But for scale, if you look at this structure right here, that is a dry well. That is something that you will actually access and walk down into, similar to how our marina is built, marina lift station. And
so 1 or 2 stories down.
it's 26 feet to the IE of the floor, so it's pretty deep.
So it's 3 stories, basically.
Yeah, just to shore the hole to put this in, it's a massive excavation. But I think that the takeaway and the intent here is this is going to be a really nice lift station. It's going to be bulletproof, robust. Right now,
Bulletproof?
bulletproof like
Not literally bulletproof.
right. So
Metaphorically.
Okay.
a good example, you see this cylinder here.
Yeah.
This is a 20,000 gallon. 20,000 gallon. Think of it like an overflow tank. So we're building in redundancy so that if we have issues, the Public Works Department has time to get out there and fix it. Generator on site, backup diesel pump, redundant control system so that if the control cabinet goes into a failure mode, there's a way for it to bypass itself and continue to power those pumps. We put together a really good set of design criteria.
Right.
And that's what's driving. It's going to be a really nice project. It'll be fun when we get to.
Right, and so bulletproof from the standpoint that right now we have a duplex wetland, right down by Ross Creek.
Yep.
And so we have a pump failure we still have another pump. Its bulletproofness is based strictly on that we have 2 pumps. Well, we learned about 5 years ago when we had that power issue where we had an electrical strike, and we thought it took out a pump, but it didn't take out the pump. It fried something in the controller that when we put the new pump in to get both pumps running, we actually just fried that pump because the issue wasn't the pump, it was in the controller. So now you got a situation where we're down to 1 pump and the pump can't keep up with the flow. Or we have the situation where we had the generator that didn't kick on and the power was out for like 5 or 6 days during that heavy storm. Now you got a generator that isn't kicking on. So now the pumps have no way to even run, and we're trying to expedite with Puget Sound Energy, but they have their protocol, and this isn't high on their protocol. And so we were getting a generator. Luckily, we were able to get the generator running, but we were having to have somebody on site 24/7 pouring basically coolant and water through the system and capturing it and just pouring it through, because there was an issue with the radiator. And so we would let the sewage fill up, turn on the generator, start literally doing this where we'd catch fluid, pour it back in, until Puget Sound Energy finally came to our rescue and came and fixed the transformer that blew. And so, the other scenarios we have is when we do have a shutdown, we're so close to the creek that you have how many minutes to respond?
40-something?
No, maybe 15.
Oh, wow.
I can't get there in 15 minutes.
No.
Certainly can't get there and open up the fence and start diagnosing controls. And so a developer obviously is building this one.
Mhm.
We're building lift station 2, and we're also doing the marina. Those are the 3 biggest lift stations for the city. Now, the cool thing is that amount of effluent between those 3 lift stations is basically half the city's sewer. We're kind of doing what I've jokingly coined as smart lift stations, where our SCADA programming is being expanded to where these 3 lift stations are going to talk to each other at all times.
Huh.
So the marina, when it has a problem, let's say it loses a pump, it's already talking to lift station 1, and it's going to say, hey,
Slow
lift
it
station
down.
1, you need to slow down.
Uh-huh.
So it's going to use VFDs to slow that pumping down. Lift station 1 is talking to lift station 2. And we're putting in a large holding tank at lift station 2. So lift station 1 is going to say, hey, LS2, I need you to stop pumping. So it's going to sit there and wait until we can get the problem fixed at the marina. And if there's a problem that can't be overcome in time, there's controls and floats that are mechanical. So even if you had no electricity, but the generator was able to kick on or the diesel pump was able to run, at some point, lift station 2 is going to say, hey, LS1, I got to go. I've got to pump. And it's going to say, no, I can't take it. It hits a certain level and it's game time. It's pumping 1, 1's pumping the marina. So we have redundant processes, both electrical and mechanical, to ensure that we're slowing those flows down, which ultimately is going to make things easier on the plant. We're going to be able to control those rates of inflow.
Which is often what they've spoken of, the
That's
problem.
what their issue is.
The up and down.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
makes it difficult on their equipment.
Right.
Which we have the option, I won't say we do have the option even at that, and I don't think it would be a bad thing, and maybe when Randy Screws is
In place.
in place and available, I think we should be looking at a Headworks. I don't know why the plant wouldn't try to do some sort of, or above the Headworks, have some sort of a pool, basin. A lot of plants have those. It's just, it allows, instead of,
It's a mitigation basin. I mean, I won't speak for when it was designed this last time, but you would traditionally want to have a large container that controls flow. You design it for the 2-year. You're not designing for the 100-year, so you could bypass it if you had to.
right.
It'd make things a lot easier on the plant.
Right. It'd allow that plant their pumps to have a more steady flow coming into the system rather than what they're getting, which is all these spikes.
Right.
So,
This is actually very exciting.
oh yeah, it's
I tell people, you just don't know how exciting utilities really is.
I mean, yeah, this is yeah.
It's awesome.
Talking about primary foods again. Well, this isn't primary food, but you take away people's ability to use the bathroom and to drink water, and people are pretty well inconvenienced.
We could call it smart sewer.
I like smart sewer.
Yeah, somebody doesn't have their lights on for a couple days. Well, they got to throw some things out in the refrigerator. But you aren't able to use the toilet. Suddenly, you're pretty inconvenienced. So, water and sewer is very.
Yep.
Also, you have in your packet a layout of Pump Station 2. So this is the one that we just issued the contract.
Well, 13.
Oh shoot. Oh, we didn't have a picture. That's right.
Not for 2. No.
I was
This is a
hoping.
really big.
Yeah, I was hoping. Sorry, I was hoping for a picture of a schematic, but we don't. We just have the engineer just on board.
The geotechnical work starts this week. They'll start doing borings, understanding the site, but it will look
It's
very
pretty much
similar.
the same location as it is now, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thought so.
Both 1 and 2 are in the general
Yeah.
location. They're just expanding.
But this is really exciting for well 13.
Right. So,
And
I guess on the
access-
McCormick Community Agreements, the update. I think you're as up to date as we are, right?
Yes, so sewer, obviously, we got that figured out. They're building 1, we're building 2. Everybody's moving ahead. Happy. Water, we are in the middle of discussing options and trying to figure out what that landscape looks like.
Which is well 12.
They only have, a limited amount of capacity left, or we only have a limited amount of capacity. We're identifying legal avenues for potential agreements or what the actual built environment would look like. Water is just so much more complex than sewer because there's a lot of improvement that needs to be built in that area, and it needs to be built for their development. And, the existing McCormick folks, have water, and so we're working with the attorneys and looking at different options of how we can come to an agreement. And I think that conversation will move very quickly. So as soon as we have something that we're ready to present, or once the attorneys say we can talk about it.
Right.
Right.
Good.
And then finally we get to the pretty picture, which is well 13. And so you can see the existing reservoir that's up there. And then basically the new facilities that will be constructed adjacent to and east of. Storm drainage mitigation to cover the impervious surface for the new facility. So ultimately, if you think about what we were doing with well 10, combining it with well 6, a lot of this infrastructure was going to be living at well 6. What we'll still have at well 6 is the new road, Maple. And so the purchase of the house that we had 4 years ago, whatever, is still viable. We're still getting away from, we're rebuilding that road. The residents will be happy because we've had complaints for years of how dangerous that road is. And then when it does fail, like it did in the past, they're stranded. So this takes care of the water main issue being in a very precarious position. But those facilities for treatment and pumping will all be on this new site.
So the entry road will be across from Fred Meyer.
Yeah,
back
it'll
in
come up.
there.
It's next to that church,
And
right?
Yep, it'll
You're
come up
keeping that
wall.
whole area wooded as a buffer all around.
How high is the fence? 6 feet, 8 feet?
It is 7.5 feet to the bottom of the razor wire.
Mm.
So in totality, it's 10 feet tall. Yeah.
And, you know, the land to the east is something that obviously the city will discuss. There was at one time conversation of making a dog park there or something. I know that the Public Works Department would surely like the very easterly end off Bethel as, at least for now, a facility for stockpiling sand in the backhoe and a
Made
snow
sense,
plow.
the location made sense to have that kind of thing there.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we'd really like to have South Shed back as a facility.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we could use that and create just as large as our shop that is up in the industrial park. You could take that
Staggered
field
access.
and we'd be right there. But we're talking about, you know, redoing the building, you know, creating that field into
Right.
an actual fenced in with buildings, maintenance, so we could get sanding trucks
Yeah, our
inside rather than outside because the sand freezes at night, which is the problem. So, but I know that the park study survey indicated that people really want to park there. So, if
That
that's
whole
how-
area lacks something, but I don't know that what's there is the best.
right,
And
the
we
issue
had
with
this
this is
conversation.
the issue with this is we'll be able to put a small facility mainly for a sanding truck because of the grades. It's not really conducive to put a full shop as the city grows and we break into having two, an east and a west.
Yeah, this site's an interim if we did anything. We need, you know, the current shop right now is in a good spot from a earthquake standpoint. It's not going anywhere. It's in a good spot and it can be accessed from the freeway going up the backside of Cook Road. So it gives us good access there. The problem is in snow and ice events, especially for people that live in the city, when they're trying to respond, they have to get through the city to get to the equipment and then come back. So if we found another site that was more centralized, it'd be faster response.
Right, and we found out how we were unintendedly impacted by basically 3304 interchange. You have an incident on 3304, and now you have that super elevation when you come in. All those cars that were, you know, sliding down, they couldn't get through that curve, and that whole interchange was a complete pileup. Once traffic backed up to Mullinex, and then you have all the traffic trying to get on and off Tremont, we couldn't get our sanding trucks even through there to get back and get more sand. So now we're trying to put sand in, and we're trying to plow,
Yeah.
but we can't because it's just a parking lot at 16 and Tremont because of what was happening at 3304. So we
You
need
also-
to have two facilities.
You also have, because of the topography right before you get into the industrial park and the way that honestly the wind and everything kind of happens right there, twice we've had an event where the forecast changed, we had a snap freeze or snow, and we can't get cars up into the industrial park because of just the way that it sits. It can happen so quickly. It's a great facility. It just needs to be one of two great facilities.
Yes.
One of the many projects.
Anyway, so this is the layout. Again, it's got the Truant building, it's got the well house.
That's a big pond.
Right, the reservoir, we're not changing anything with the reservoir. Because this is a top-down system as opposed to a pumping
up.
system.
And this project includes PRVs within the city so that we can drop water downward. And it also includes an earthquake valve for the reservoir.
Really?
So if the valve, so it's two-part. One is the valve that you install is great, and the valve says, okay, if I see a high flow event and I register a seismic activity, I'm going to shut down so we can protect the water that's in that reservoir. Reservoirs are actually designed to move when they're full. If you have a huge event where you draw the water out of it and then it moves, it's a problem because it wasn't designed for that. It can't be. So seismic event, high flow, valve shuts. We are also looking into, and I have a meeting set up with the company that does it. They're called Various, which I think is comical because they do various services. But they were a group of people that left a consulting firm because they really wanted to focus on water systems in earthquake events. They've partnered with UC Berkeley, Washington University, or WSU, UW, a couple other places. They're installing seismic sensors along the coastline. And what they offer is they offer you a one-time buy-in to their product. I don't know what the cost is yet. It's based off system size, but it's not very much. And what happens is this sensor, it's called Shake Alert, can be integrated with your SCADA system to where when something is detected on the coast, within seconds you can shut down your reservoirs and protect all the water before you actually get the P waves coming through. So the idea is that in a Cascadia event, our goal is to protect that water. And I mean, people are literally gonna have to bring jugs up and fill up the reservoirs because the pipes are all gonna be, you know, here we go Mad Max again.
But you're gonna have water.
But you're gonna have water, and that's gonna be key,
And
since
when
it is
we-
a primary food.
And when we've done our emergency management drills, our big countywide, our Cascadia that we had about 4 years ago, we had that big earth shake
Uh-huh.
thing. You know, Public Works, we're really, you know, we're not doing the life safety, the firemen and everybody. You know, we're dealing with roads and knowing, getting roads open, inventorying what's out there. But our main thing is, and we know that sewer is going to be running in the bay. I mean, it's just, and natural gas is going to be burning all over the place. Our primary, as far as we're going to be needing to protect water, because over time, you know, again, it goes back to that primary food conversation, air and water. People are going to be looking to us to provide water, potable water. And so if we've got a reservoir that's full and we got 500,000 gallons, and we can, again, have that distributed in the time of need over a time period until resources come in.
Kind of ration.
Right, we're gonna, because if it just spills out on the ground, then that's it. Now we're completely dependent on, you know, airdrops and barges and systems that are in place. I mean, we've got agreements with California to have barges sent up, but they're gonna be dealing with their own if it's Cascadia. But there are systems in place to feed the Puget Sound really through by sea.
I hike, I was just hiking the Yakima Rim, and I saw a seismic monitor thing out there.
Oh, yeah.
That's not water related, probably, but it's a little, it's in a place that used to have a lookout station. It's one of the highest points.
I think it's probably there just for access, because there was a road that they could get to it, because if it had like the old Green Mountain,
Yeah,
you know, so you had access to, they're just wanting these stations.
it's got these little, I mean, it can produce a signal and,
It's funny, so you'll see those, and you'll see those USGS monuments. And I was in Montana, I was in the Spanish Peaks. It was my first, a couple years ago, my first over 14,000 in elevation climb. And I got there and it was awesome. It took me forever. I come back down, and a couple of weeks later, I'm online and I'm trying to show my wife where I'd gotten to, you know, and I'm zooming in, and there was a USGS monument
yes.
40, 50 feet to my left, and I didn't see it. I could have got a picture of it.
Right.
Now I gotta go back. Sounds like a lot of work.
So yeah, there are a lot of efforts being made to preserve water. And a lot of times you don't even think of it from the seismic standpoint.
Right.
But people inherently know that, okay, you're going to deal with they teach you over at emergency management that when an earthquake starts and you start counting, if you get to 120 seconds, anything past 2 minutes,
It's
you know
liquid.
that it's
Liquefied.
Cascadia.
Mhm.
It's Most are like 40, 30 to 45, 50 seconds.
Yeah.
That would be so unnerving.
And you get to 2 minutes, you know that you got another
Ah,
3 to 5 minutes.
And we have to make these improvements because right now our protocol is if we have an event, crews get dispatched, depending where you're at, you're probably not at work. Or maybe you are, I don't know. But crews get dispatched with a valve key to go shut the reservoir off. Well, that could be, on a good day, 45 minutes. By then, the water's gone. That's why it's gotta be.
Right.
But see, the problem is balancing all of this, the costs of this with what people can handle now, who
Right.
may not even be making use of these systems. You know, it's just, that's
Yeah.
the problem. You've got Norm sitting here going, hey, this is killing me. And,
Right. No,
and
yeah, it's a balance. That's a good point. Is we're not developing a doomsday system,
right,
but yet we're also being able to be in our redesign adding elements.
right.
Right.
It's being mindful of the future and planning, and yet, you know, it could be a nuclear attack and then, hey, we're all screwed, so,
Right.
you know, whatever.
And to be honest, it's a unique opportunity where the cost of this compared to the project is negligible.
Right.
You won't
Right.
even notice it.
Right.
It's like the mag locks on the bathrooms.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, we had an unintended consequence of the DeKalb Pier. Right now we have all these boats living in the bay. We had an unintended consequence of the McCormick Park. It's becoming a hotel. So for a very small cost, we can add mag locks.
I thought we were
and
gonna do those key things. Is that the same thing as the key things?
But keyless.
no, it's just it just
You can control it
The-
from off-site.
the system will the building will shut at a certain time, and we can control that time depending on the time of the year.
But if somebody's inside,
They can get out.
but,
Doesn't lock anybody in.
Right.
Now that's why
but we
there's
can't get rid of them if they're in there.
Well, that's why there's the conversation to also add.
Sprinkler system.
No, that was a joke.
No, then it's a shower.
Yeah, no, that was the thought was to add some sort of motion sensor.
Oh, yeah.
So that was not ultra sensitive, so it would be set off by
Squirrel.
If there's a human being in there, then it'll dispatch the police to escort them out. So I think that's probably the best moving forward.
How
is-
many people were staying there? Do we know? 1, 2.
I know that
People
there
are staying
no, no.
everywhere. They're
I
just
don't know.
staying
It's an epidemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one or two individuals that tend to
The same
like
ones
that
were there?
spot. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna. So
It's
again,
big.
the point
It's
is that
big.
that's a de minimis.
Right.
In the cost of that project, it's nothing to. We're gonna add it to the Well 9 project, and we're gonna retrofit it to the McCormick
Good.
project,
That's
and
good.
the costs are gonna be negligible.
Well, especially when you're saving labor, it doesn't
Right.
take very long.
Well, yeah, we're definitely,
Right.
instead of having us, like we tried to do at one time where we would go out, have somebody lock the gate, lock the building, then have to come back in on their way in to work and be, now you're paying an extra half hour of overtime.
And most of the time, those people are going there at night, and it'll be locked anyways. So once they just learn, we'll
Right.
train them up.
Right.
It's
So.
gonna be locked.
Perfect.
Okay, well, this was an interesting meeting.
Yeah, so meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Okay, great.